towards would-be entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs. And I like to start it with a simple definition of what an entrepreneur is. I believe that most of you, if not all of you, received the outline that Dale circulated. And we're going to follow along that outline pretty closely. If you have any questions or comments as we go along, please feel free to stop me, raise your hand if you're on video, or jump in the chat. Dale will be monitoring that. But typically when one starts a business, most of us know that we should have a business plan, right? Your accountant tells you, other small business advisors tell you, you must have a business plan. But rarely had I ever heard anyone advise you must have a family plan. And once I became aware of this, I looked at it and said, you know, that makes a lot of sense, because if you don't have your home life in order, it's going to be very difficult for you to succeed in business. Now, let's get into the outline. What is an entrepreneur? As stated in the outline, an entrepreneur is a person who organizes and manages a business or industrial enterprise, taking the risk of not making a profit and getting the profit when there is one, or one who undertakes to start and conduct an enterprise or business, usually assuming full control and risk. Does that pretty much mesh with everyone's idea of what an entrepreneur is? Pretty much. I see Laura nodding. I can't see anyone else on camera, but I assume she speaks for everyone. So you're our spokesman this morning, Laura.
I better go get another coffee.
Yeah, there you go. We have a little slide presentation up on your screen that follows along pretty closely to our seminar outline. We're not going to be covering all of these topics in this session, but they will be covered in the subsequent weeks that we get into this.
Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Well, if you don't have your camera, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, let's talk about some common mistakes made by entrepreneurs when they get into business or start thinking about getting into business. The first item we have up, Dale, I think it's on the next slide, blind enthusiasm. What do you think we're talking about when we say blind enthusiasm? Laura, you're on since I can see you.
Good question. Probably just trying to start a business you're all excited, we're all motivated, and we think we're gonna just go gung-ho and get everything positive.
Yeah. Anybody else? Jay, Melissa?
Sort of pie in the sky without deeply thinking about it first.
Exactly. You know, you get so excited about the prospect of a new business that you really don't consider any possibility of negative resistance. Blind enthusiasm. You're just gung-ho. The next mistake made, running away. What do you think we're talking about when we say it's a mistake that people are running away when they start a business? Any ideas?
Getting away from an environment that they're presently in that they don't care for.
Yeah, like a sudden job loss or dissatisfied with the day-to-day work environment, worried about finances or failure. You know, you just need to move quickly to do something. You need to get away. Okay, everybody see that?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll take it that everybody agrees that that's a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Egocentricity. That is a common mistake made. What are we talking about there? Egocentricity basically centers around the entrepreneur just assuming that his support mechanism, his family, his spouse, his potential partner will make whatever adjustments are necessary to support him or her in this business. It's all about me. They'll adjust because I want to do it. Anybody ever experience that or hear of it happening? Nobody, huh?
Oh, I did.
Yeah, well, you have to have a healthy ego and a certain amount of self-confidence to start a business. When I first started doing this some 40 years ago, I used to advise people that were starting their business that you have to be a risk taker also. But I've gotten away from saying that to people. And the reason being, in this day and age, it's a risk if you work for General Motors. It's a risk if you work for IBM. Everyone is laying off. So me personally, I decided decades ago, I'd rather take the risk, quote unquote, and bet on myself than to rely upon an employer to take care of my best interests. All right, going right along. Fear or inability to communicate is a common mistake made by would-be entrepreneurs. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but tell me what it means to you, someone. Fear or inability to communicate. Anybody?
A business stage fright. How's that?
Yeah. The would-be entrepreneur isn't really accustomed to discussing openly with their supportive other how the business may affect their relationship or lifestyle. And that's a big, big mistake. Blissful naivete. Blissful naivete. That pretty much says what it is, that basically the would-be entrepreneur is completely unaware prospective business will affect concerns and problems until they actually arise. So that's blissful naivete. Now, on the flip side, those are mistakes that the would-be entrepreneur makes. There are also mistakes made on the other side. But before we move on, can anyone else think of any other mistakes that the would-be entrepreneur may make in terms of their relationship or not planning the impact on their family or supportive other? Did we miss anything? I'm sure we did, but is there one or more that anyone would like to share with the group?
My father once went into business and did not consult a lawyer first, and I sure wish he did.
Yeah, getting professionals to help you. One thing that is great about entrepreneurs, but also an Achilles heel, is most entrepreneurs are really good at something, whether it's building a widget or baking a good or designing a bridge. They're all good at something. However, they're not good at everything. And for that, you definitely need a professional team around you, which typically includes an accountant, an attorney, and not just Joe, your brother-in-law, who is a divorce attorney. You need an attorney that is skilled and knowledgeable about commercial law and business. And also, it's good to have an objective business advisor that can be objective and be a sounding board for your decision making. All right, moving right along with mistakes. As we stated, not only does the would-be entrepreneur make mistakes, but his support system also makes mistakes. And one of the first we discuss is well-intended support. What do you think we're talking about there? This is the support group, the spouse, the partner of the would-be entrepreneur providing well-intended support. And I'm saying that that's a mistake. Why? Wouldn't everybody want their spouse to give well-intended support?
I know in my situation, I'm going from a hobby into a business. And a lot of my family thinks, well, it's still just a hobby. No, it's going to be my livelihood.
That's exactly right, Laura. You know, what happens is your support system wants to be your champion.
Mhm.
They want to support your dreams, and they don't want to throw cold water on your enthusiasm. However, what they don't realize, which I think you do based on what you just said, a hobby and a business are totally different. What's the difference, guys, between a hobby and a business?
For me,
Come
it's
on, you know the answer to this. What's that, Laura?
getting paid.
There you go, money. That's the difference. Another mistake made by our support system is they become starstruck. What are we referring to there? What happens is they may share their would-be entrepreneurs' romantic vision of the great prosperity that they're going to have, the improved relationship and family life. They're excited about what their partner's entrepreneurial opportunity may lead to. They're just blinded, they're starstruck. That's a mistake. What about lack of knowledge and awareness? What are we referring to there as a mistake?
Are you talking about knowledge of the business itself?
Yes, that is correct. They really don't understand the demands that the business will put on the relationship or the family. And they just go with it. Fear or inability to communicate, similar to what we discussed with the would-be entrepreneur, that basically the partner may have reservations but are afraid to voice their concern or opinion. They don't want their partner to think less of them or be angry with them for not giving full support. And that's a mistake. You got to be honest, because the business is going to not only affect the entrepreneur, but it's going to affect the family and the total relationship. It's better than nothing. Has anyone either been, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you if you've been guilty of this, but have you heard of the support of others attitude being, well, it's better than nothing. At least he got off the couch, right?
Yep.
That's not very good, because what it shows is that the support of other is just anxious, and they want their would-be entrepreneur to find the right livelihood, and hey, it's better than nothing. Go out there and try it. And the last one, they weren't asked. You think that ever happens? You think anybody goes into a business without asking their supportive other if it's a good idea or discussing it with them? Yeah, it happens too frequently, unfortunately. We're going to move on to the next. Any questions about those common mistakes? Any questions, discussions? No? Okay, we're going to move on to the next section, which is a discussion of a family plan. Now, the purpose of the family plan is to basically avoid some of these mistakes that we just discussed. As business professionals advise you to do a business plan, I strongly suggest that even prior to the business plan, the family plan be constructed. Let's go through it. In every family plan, you have financial considerations, such as the initial investment that will be required in the business. How much capital will be necessary? And this is important. If you are looking to start a manufacturing operation, then you are going to have the expense of machinery and equipment. You are probably going to either need to lease commercial space or buy a building. So that's considerable capital expenditures up front. You need to realize those things going in. If you do not have the capital to pull it off, then you should not be in that form of business. However, on the flip side, if you are in a service business, it's a relatively low initial capital investment to get started. You don't necessarily need to build your inventory going in. You do need to spend money on advertising and positioning your business, but the cost is considerably less than it would be for a manufacturing operation. So how much initial capital will be necessary? Item number one. Will you need to borrow to keep your business going? Or will you need to borrow to supplement that initial investment? And along with that, what is the impact of that debt service going to be on your family income? What portion of your total assets will you need to invest in your business? And as we discussed initially, what major purchases will be required? So those are all financial considerations under your initial investment. But after the initial investment, you have ongoing investment. How much cash is required monthly to support the business? And that includes, guess what? You need to take a salary more likely than not. A lot of people fail to plan that aspect, and it could be fatal in their decision-making because we all still have our personal obligations which need to be taken care of. The next thing we want to consider, length of time before positive cash flow. What's the learning curve in the business? How much time will it take before you can turn a profit? What do you think the average time is from startup until a business turns a profit? Anybody?
5 years.
How many?
5.
Who said that?
Me, Melissa.
You win, Melissa, you're right. SBA studies show that on average, about 5 years before you turn a positive cash flow. So that means that for that 5-year period, you have to be prepared to take care of your family, yourself, and your business until that positive cash flow is triggered. Income projections. What are the reasonable expectations for positive cash flow in 3, 6, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? People think that when we get into the business plan, we'll do a lot of talking about cash flow projections. Cash flow projections, both from a personal and a business point of view, it's not just an exercise for academia. It's very practical, because what you need to define, and most people don't have a clue coming into their business, but what you need to define is all of the potential cash coming into a business, all the cash going out. And typically for the first few years, there will be more cash going out than coming in, which creates what we call a gap. That gap needs to be filled. And it could be filled from your savings. It could be filled from borrowing. It could be filled from a partner. Whatever the source, it needs to be filled. If you do not take care of the gap, the difference between income and expenses, your business will fail. You will just run out of steam. And that is the primary reason why most small businesses fail. They do not plan adequately for their cash flow needs. So if I do nothing this morning, impress you other than to some planning, focus on that. Income projections, good, but we're more concerned about cash flow than income. Transition options. Can you get into the business on a part-time basis while you still have your current job? Many businesses you can.
Mhm.
Can you
That's-
work the business part-time?
That's what I'm kind of looking to do for myself.
Okay, and what type of business?
Bookkeeping?
Yeah, you can definitely ease into that. And who is this, Melissa?
Yes.
Yeah, you can definitely ease into that. That's a service business.
Hmm.
And you can definitely keep your day job, if you will, and ease into making it a full-time position.
Okay.
So, and you cannot do that in all businesses,
No.
but in service businesses in particular, there is that avenue for you. You can work it part-time. And you must ask yourself, how long will the initial setup process take? In other words, how long before you develop a market? How long before you develop an identity? And those are things you must consider. All of these questions that I'm raising for those of you that have your outline, go back and look at the outline and actually start filling in some of the actual numbers or answering some of the questions. It will serve you well going forward in your planning process. Insurance and tax implications. How will insurance needs for your family be cared for? That's very important. If you are working a 9 to 5 and your employer provides you with health insurance, leaving right away to start your own business, you have to recognize the impact that that will have on your family. So what it means is you are going to have to get health insurance on your own. You can join a group. Entities such as the chamber, they have their chamber insurances where they pool many small businesses under one group plan, which shares the cost. And for something like that, I would encourage you to contact Nancy at the chamber, get a membership, and pursue that as a viable alternative. You also have tax implications from starting a business. Now, typically the tax implications are positive according to the type of business that you start. Now, I'm not going to get into any great detail, but an LLC form of business allows you to expense many business expenditures that lowers your tax basis. And we'll discuss that in subsequent sessions.
Not everything's a write-off.
Not everything is a write-off. That is correct. Certain business expenses. Certain business expenses. What is the perceived risk of going into your business? And the way that you ascertain that is you consider what the industry norms are. What is your likelihood for success? So for example, right now, everyone is trending on social media. I would not be too encouraged if you came to me and said you wanted to start a newspaper right now. It's just not something that people are into. So, you know, you need to consider the environment, the business environment that your business will be functioning in. And lastly, under financial considerations, what is the perceived risk? What do you do if the business fails? You got to have a backup. Now, we talked about some of the mistakes made that, you know, you just are so positive that you know you're going to be a success. But guess what, folks? Most businesses fail. Most businesses fail. So have a backup plan. Okay? Moving right along. What are the time considerations? How much time every day, every week will it take to operate your business successfully? A lot of people underestimate how much time it takes to be successful in business. You know, when I was in banking, I used to put in 50-hour weeks, 55-hour weeks and think I was working hard. That wasn't until I started my own business. Then it became 60-hour weeks plus. So make sure that you recognize the reality of how much time it will take to operate the business, even on a part-time basis. If you're operating part-time, if you're putting your toe in, what that means is you are probably the whole band. You don't have staff, so you're going to be doing every function. Takes a lot of time. What's your working schedule going to be? If you are a morning person and you fade away in the afternoons, however, your business is catering towards afternoon and evening clientele, guess what? You have a mismatch. You know, don't tell me you're going to open up a restaurant focusing on dinners and you're dying out at noontime. Also, if you and your significant other enjoy weekends together, holidays away, you might want to have a long discussion and consider the realities of that, because your weekends and your holidays all of a sudden are not yours as they once were. Are there seasonal concerns? Are there seasonal concerns? If you are selling a product that has seasonality, winter clothing, I don't know, you might think that, yeah, the winter is my selling season, but guess what? You're going to be buying that raw material in the spring of the year prior. So yes, there is seasonality in your selling season, but you are going to be fully involved for much more than that. So these are just some of the time considerations that must be considered when starting a business. What are the travel considerations? Will your business require you to travel? If you need to sell on a regional basis, on a state basis, on a national basis, you will travel. It's nice that we are all connected and plugged in on the internet and social media, but there's nothing that can beat a face-to-face approach and developing relationships along the way. So consider the travel requirements. And that may not work out too well if you're in a relationship with young children, a spouse or supportive other that works a job or has a business that takes them away from the home, then two people cannot be away from the home. So think it through, folks, and talk it through. And again, will the travel be local, national, international? Big differences, in particular during this time of COVID. Will the travel require overnight stays away from home? How long at a stretch? How much of an issue would this be for your spouse or supportive other? All of those things must be considered. And even the basics, if you're staying local, how long of a commute will you have? And what is the impact of that commute on your family life? It's interesting, here in Connecticut, most people are probably within about an hour or so of their place of business or work. I'm a New York City boy, and it's not unusual for New Yorkers to travel a couple of hours or more to go back and forth to work. But it does have its impact, so consider those things. What are the home office considerations? Will you work out of your home? Can you work out of your home? Is it a full-time or a part-time situation? If you have small children running around the house or pets, it might not be too conducive for you to have a home office or be working from the home. Not very professional. Some people are good at working from the home, some are not. Some get distracted easily by being at home. So these are things that only you can answer, but you need to be honest with yourself. The zoning requirements. That is a big consideration. Here in Hamden, we have various zones, residential, commercial, mixed, etc. If you are planning on running your business out of your home in a residential area, and it's a manufacturer or requires a lot of foot traffic, you may be out of luck. You may not be able to do that from your home. So check into the zoning and know where you can and cannot operate your planned type of business.
Rich, let me just jump in here. As somebody who's actually gotten a permit, zoning permit for a home-based business, it's not, as Rich said, it depends on how much client traffic you get. In this day and age now, people are working more remotely. So, but it's not that hard, but you do have to have a zoning permit. because ultimately you're gonna end up getting a loan, and then they're gonna want a zoning compliance letter to get that loan, or some other kind of documentation that you need zoning for. So I would encourage you to look into it. It costs like $150 to get a zoning permit to operate a home-based business, but as he said, don't assume it's automatically allowed.
Right. Also, in terms of your home office or, any location of your business, the location is very important. Zoning we talked about, but location. For example, if your customer base is going to come to your place of business primarily by personal automobile, it might be good to have adequate parking for them to park. If you have a lot of foot traffic, it might be good to be near a busy intersection or on a bus line or those type of considerations. So consider the location versus your customer base and how they will access that location. Personal considerations. Is this the right livelihood for you? How does the business fit with your personality? What you love to do? What your skills and abilities are? I love it. Well, I don't love it. I'm being sarcastic, but many occasions at the Business Assistance Center, people will come in and they want to open up a restaurant. And I'll ask them, that's great. Have you worked in a restaurant before? No. Okay, are you a chef, a cook? Have you culinary certifications? No. What makes you think that you want to open up a restaurant? Well, I love to cook and I'm good with people. Okay, that is not the recipe for success. So be honest with yourself. Just because it's something that you like to do doesn't mean that someone is going to like to pay you to do it. We've established that to be an entrepreneur, to be a business, you need to get paid for what you do. So you should have some experience, some skill level in what it is you are thinking about doing or what it is you are doing. Something that would provide value to the purchaser. How excited are you about the product or service you are delivering? That's important. If I go to a store, a clothing store, a food store, to buy a car, and the person is not enthusiastic about what it is they're selling, well, guess what? I'm not going to be. So that's important that you believe in your product or service. How will the business that you are planning on going into help you to achieve your business and family goals? If your goal is to retire in 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be, or to build a legacy for your son or daughter, something to pass on, how is the business that you are starting or business that you involved in positioned to help you to achieve that goal? And how does the business coincide with your values? If you are a strong anti-drug person, then I wouldn't suggest that you open up a marijuana shop, even though it may be legal. Okay, so All of those things have to be considered. Let's talk about the relationship considerations. To what extent will your significant other be involved in the business operations? That's important because you may have one set of expectations and they may have another. So those things have to agree. To what extent will your significant other be involved in the decision-making and setup process? If you're assuming that you're going to receive all of this help getting your business started from your significant other, and they have a different mindset, then all it does is build resentment and ultimately lead to the demise of your business. How supportive is your significant other about the business option you've chosen? And to what extent does the business option require your significant other's cooperation and support to succeed? All of those things must be considered when you are starting your business. Your couple goals, your relationship maintenance, children consideration, family needs, long-term family goals. All of those things must be considered. So that's a quick run through of the family plan. At this point, I open it up to any questions about anything that we've discussed. In 2 weeks, we will be getting into more of the nitty-gritty on starting and growing your business, where we will be discussing the various forms of business, options for entry, etc. So I encourage all of you to continue on with us. This first session was more of an introduction to make you start thinking about the important matters that one should consider prior to getting into the nitty-gritty of business planning. So at this point, any questions, concerns, comments?
Really?
The next session is September 23rd at 8:30. And I will be clear about the start time.
Questions, concerns, comments? Did this session at all make you start thinking about things that perhaps you had not thought about prior to going through this?
The family implication. The family implication.
Well, that was the intent. The family, the supportive partner, they can make or break you.
That was definitely something I did.
Okay, anybody else?
I think for me, going from the hobby into a business, and my family supported me in the hobby, but the transition from the hobby to the business is something that my eyes opened a little bit more, thinking about maybe I got the business plan ideas, I've talked to people, but I never really put something in motion as to say, well, this is how it's going to impact the family, instead of working a few hours when I want to versus my 8 to 5 is now going to be working this instead of it's just a hobby.
Yeah, and it's a different mindset.
Yeah, totally
Laura,
different.
what type of business will it be?
I've been doing direct business sales with a third-party vendor for years and years because I love the product. So I get the catalogs, I sell it. The inventory I have is stuff that I use on a regular basis. And it's gotten to the point where now I want to take the next step instead of just doing a few sales here and there, but more motivating myself to not go back to a full-time job, but make this become my full-time job.
I see. And I'd like to hear from the other people tuning in what I think, Melissa, you said yours is bookkeeping?
I'm looking to start a bookkeeping company. I don't know, side hustle, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I currently work for a company. I work crazy kind of weird hours, only because of COVID and my child in school and things like that. But I kind of wanted to take on something to see if I could leave current corporate and start my own, having, 5 or 6 clientele and just work with them solely on a remote basis, because, bookkeeping and accounting, and you really don't need to be in the office anymore. Everything
Right.
can be done virtual. I work nicely from home. I like setting my own hours. 8:30 in the morning does not work for me. I am more of a 9:30 gal, like from 9 to 3 are my killing hours. Like I can kill it between 9 and 3. I don't want to be up all night long. I don't want to be up really early, kind of a thing. Like I kind of want to make it niche to my needs and command the clientele that I want and the salary that I want, that I'm not seeing as working for companies.
By the way, everybody on this call, do you like the idea of 8:30 or do you like 9 o'clock? I don't think I have a preference. It doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter to me either.
If we need to switch, I'm willing to switch. As long as my coffee's in front of me, I'm good. to go.
Yeah. Everybody on Zoom now, it's coffee and sweatpants, right? Amber and Jacqueline, what do you what are your business plans, if you have them, and what do you think about 9 o'clock versus at 8:30?
Hi, this is Jacqueline. 9 o'clock actually does work better for me because I drop my
Okay.
kids off at daycare in the morning, so it gives me a little more time. And I drop them off.
Mom power.
Yeah, I drop them off in Westwoods, and for those that know Hamden, there's parts I don't even have cell service, so so 9 works best. As for my business plans, I currently work for the federal government doing contracting, and I really shouldn't complain because it's a great gig with good benefits, good pay, and thanks to COVID, very flexible work-life schedule. But it's something I am not passionate about whatsoever. It's more of your monotonous, mundane stuff. And so I've been creating like gift baskets, custom made gift baskets for a year now. I have drummed up support from friends and family. I've had friends and family order baskets. I've done, friends and family's weddings. I've made like baskets for the bathrooms, gift baskets for pretty much any occasion. And I've, tried to advertise on Facebook and Instagram a little bit, but it's been tough. I feel like that's sort of one of those hobbies that a lot of people, do. So that's kind of where I would like to be within the next 5 years, is kind of launching a basket business that, can't sustain. It won't be my only source of income, but if it could be a reliable second source of income, because right now it's not even really a second source of income. It's, a couple bucks here and there, but if it could be a realistic second source of income, and then kind of building on that, or not even building, it's almost entirely separate, but I would like to, in about 10 years from now, I would love to leave the federal government 10 years from now and start a coffee shop, which has kind of a little bit of a coffee shop, but like gift basket, little shopping area too. New Haven has, I feel like they have a market for a lot of, artsy, non-traditional coffee shop. So I would love to see that happen in about 10 years, but in the near future, more just the basket stuff.
If you need a bookkeeper, just say you need a bookkeeper.
Well, yeah, we can be a little mini referral place, but I think it's important to note that not every business is measured by being on Fortune 500 magazine cover.
Yeah.
And our job is to nurture whatever level fits your lifestyle. because if you have kids, especially, I mean, my kids are grown now, but I mean, I'm what's called semi-retired, but I'm constantly evaluating my business practices as a consultant to get to my goal, my personal goal, which is full retirement in a couple of years.
Mhm.
But everybody's different in where they are in life. And so if we can, as we go on and we learn about your ideas, your dream, we can provide other resources to you, maybe Rich directly eventually. That's our goal. Amber, we haven't heard from you. What do you think about 9 o'clock and what's your business idea?
How you doing, everybody? So for me, honestly, 9 o'clock isn't horrible, but I kind of like a flexible schedule, to be honest, each day kind of being different. For the most part, I currently do have an LLC, but me and my sister, she's 10 years younger than me. She wants to start her own salad shop. So essentially, I want to be like a silent investor for her. She wasn't able to get on the call. She's sleeping. So, but she wants to do a salad shop in Hamden. She, grew up in Hamden, similar to Jenny's Marketplace that's in New York. I don't know if you all are familiar, but essentially it's kind of like a assembly line type of ordeal, similar to Chipotle, but essentially it's just salad. So she's interested in that. And, I've given her some tools. I've created a business plan in the past with SCORE at Gateway. I've, been to some workshops at the Women's Business Development Council. So I have a little bit of knowledge, but, I'm always looking to refresh myself. And even in this day and age, kind of post-COVID, I want her to get information that is helpful to see if people are ready to kind of eat out more. I know restaurants are open and, that's kind of like okay to do, but then, there's a lot of surges with the whole COVID still.
And salad can be tricky because that's like something that can spoil quickly. Like your inventory can spoil quickly if
Right.
it's not sold quickly. So you can
Exactly.
lose a lot of money with that.
Right. So I know she wants to start small. We were looking at some spaces in Hamden Plaza that are vacant, but, she has like no experience with business. And for the most part, she has never worked a job either. So that's kind of a little hard to kind of get her with like social skills. So yeah, it's just kind of up in the air, but yeah, essentially a salad shop.
I retired from the town of Hamden. I was the economic development director. And so I dealt with real estate, dealing with shopping center owners and property owners in general. So I think, Rich, maybe we can interject a little bit of this in one of the sessions about how to deal with owners. Because so, for example, if she hasn't been in the industry and she wants to go in an empty spot in the Hamden Plaza, I hate to disappoint her, but they're not going to lease to her because doesn't have a credit history in that industry. They only deal with nationals, pretty much. DSW and Starbucks they're renovating 2 spaces now. They're building a new Starbucks, actually. So, but there are other property owners that do have certain requirements that she could meet. So I think, Rich, we could probably look at the outline and see if give me 10 or 15 minutes to talk about this topic, because all the people that just spoke, yes, it's very true that some of this doesn't have to happen in a place, but you may be dealing with sharing a place someday, sort of an incubation type environment. And the other thing I wanted to say was that I like telling stories. I always believe that small business owners, like all of you on this call, are the heart of the country, the heart of the town. And I'm not going to mention your name, certainly, but I will say in promoting the next session of this series that some of the participants are interested in opening small businesses like bookkeeping, a salad shop. I have to find the right words. I wouldn't certainly mention your names to pique people's interest, because that's who we're trying to appeal to. A big tech company is not interested in this series, but people that are opening or expanding on a home business are exactly the kind of people we want to encourage. And the last thing I'll say is that later on in the series, we will bring in the Hamden Chamber of Commerce, who will also have a certain amount of value to you in helping you promote your business and do a lot of networking. I like what you did, Melissa, to offer Jackie bookkeeping services. That's the whole idea, is to take solopreneurs, which is what you all are basically, and learn how to work together. But the chamber also has a lot to offer you, and Nancy from the chamber will be making an appearance towards the end of the series, because that's where you tie it all together. So anyway, that's all I have to say, Rich.
And also for you, Amber, you and your sister looking into this business, certainly that's one way to go. However, as you were talking about your strengths and her experience, I don't know if you've considered bringing in other partners or investors, or even the example that you gave of the New York salad shop, perhaps approaching them to see if they could franchise their operation or are franchising. There are a lot of options available that people don't really explore the gamut. And one of the things that we will be talking about on the next session, as I said, besides starting from scratch, an LLC or corporation, is franchising, bringing in investors, bringing in partners, and going that route. So there are other alternatives available to you, Amber.
Thank you so much.
Okay, is there anything else before we break for the day? Again, the next one is the 23rd. Rich will get into the nuts and bolts more of LLCs versus C Corps versus, all the different options, and really start breaking it down. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just had oh, go ahead.
Amber, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just had a question in the chat. I think it's similar to Laura's too. Is a zoning permit for a home business only used in Hamden, or is that something that is like universal now?
It's pretty much universal. I think, I think a lot of home-based businesses don't have them and nobody ever knows. But when you need money, in particular, they look for a zoning compliance letter, the bank or whoever you're borrowing money from. And then they go to get the zoning compliance letter and they say, oh, Amber doesn't have a zoning permit. Or let's say you need to build out you want to build out that, your garage into something, or, something where you need a building permit. Well, same thing's going to happen. So you have to assume it's universal. If you're in East Podunk, Connecticut with, population 2,000 people, it's probably not a big deal. And the other thing that you'll probably deal with is your technology issues as a home-based business, because of even this morning, I came into the chamber to do this with Rich. We're only like 15 feet apart, but we're in separate rooms with the door shut because my Wi-Fi at home really sucks. I mean, I would be freezing like every 10 seconds. No matter what I do, it doesn't work. So you have to assume you need the zoning permit. It will be a problem for you someday. I guarantee it.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very easy form. It's 2 pages, $150. The main thing, my advice to you on that, Amber, is the main thing you need to know about a zoning permit for home-based businesses. They're most concerned about parking and customers coming in and out. If you can convince them that you only go to the client, the customer, that's the key thing you need to be able to answer when they ask. They're going to ask you for a sketch of your house, and there's usually a sketch. They don't want a big, technical survey, but they want you to be able to draw where parking is going to be, hand draw right on a drawing. So, you just have to, that customer in and out is the big thing because they're worried about your neighbors complaining.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and to follow up with the Amber question is, getting that permit, how is that going to affect, because especially in my situation, it's a bag situation. Literally, I'm going to be selling bags. So I usually go to the clients to do the presentation. They order them. I still have some inventory, but is that going to affect the tax department as well? Because having a business, should I be reaching out to them, letting them know that I'm going to be starting a small business? The equipment that I have is my laptop and a bag of bags.
Yeah, well, I've had my LLC at my house for a couple of years now. I've never had it. Nothing in terms of taxes has changed.
Okay.
And, you know, most people know, I think it's sort of part of the society now, the world, that people are working out of their houses. I don't think it's not unusual at all. It's actually more the norm. But in terms of taxes, I haven't seen any change. I think if you do renovations,
Okay,
let's say you wanted to take your garage and make it into like a distribution. I mean,
Right.
I'm obviously upsizing what you're doing at this point. Then I could see a tax implication because now you've made a physical repair. But a lot of people have eBay businesses. They've had them even way before COVID. They have other kinds of sales things through Amazon or, whatever, because Amazon's just really a portal to
Right.
a lot of other sales. So unless you do something physical, I don't see a problem for you.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, let me say there's a sequence too, a logical sequence. The zoning permit for you, Laura, and for you, Amber, at this stage, don't worry about it right now. You're early on in the process. There are other things that need to be done before you get there. So I don't want to see anyone spend money unnecessarily.
Sure.
Okay,
And we'll all reach out to Melissa to help us with our bookkeeping once we get big.
there you go.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, folks. Well, hopefully we will see all of you and more in a couple of weeks. Please go back to the outline. If you do not have the outline, contact Dale or myself and we will get one to you. But go back over the outline and actually start answering the questions on the considerations under the family financial plan, how it affects you. It will help you in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
All right, everybody, have a great day.
Thank you.
take care, folks.
Bye.
Thank you.